beer pickup go last night? I was a little concerned that you were running late.
Yeah, it all actually worked out fine. We had a good turnout for this meetup, and
Cool.
I think out of like about 20 attendees, we probably got about 4 or 5 really good leads. So
That's
for a
awesome.
meetup, that's pretty
That's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah. I think you said you're only expecting like a dozen people or so, right? When we
Yeah, it was a pretty good turnout.
Awesome.
So
All right. So I was just talking to Gabby, and we thought, we have some ideas for themes and such we can pitch, but we were just curious. Is there anything on your mind that you're like, we got to write about this, like a topic or a theme or a title or anything?
Not necessarily. I've been talking a lot the past week or so about where we're kind of focused. I could probably kind of throw out some different themes. I would love if we could take a minute just to like refresh me on the Forbes Tech Council and, what it is, what we do, where it goes, what we get out of it, that kind of a thing. I guess it was free, right? We just needed to be accepted in, and is that right?
So we actually paid back, I think it was back in February. It was like $1,400, but with that we get 10 articles that we can write, and that will be published on Forbes Tech Council. And so it'll come through as bylines from Josh.
Okay.
And so, yeah, basically with the Tech Council, you have to be accepted in. So we, completed the application and, detailed all of Josh's background information. And he's been included with a group of other CEOs and C-level executives who can publish on the site.
Okay. So we imagine these all being kind of like authored by Josh on the site, and then we get 10 of them. Is I guess the idea, try to like maybe like one a month?
Yeah, exactly. It's basically what it breaks down to is about one per month, and we will write them, and then Forbes will edit and send any updates that they want made. And then, it's published onto the Forbes website.
Okay. And just the straight up Forbes website, maybe kind of the text section or something like that?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think it'll say, Josh Stella, his CEO of Fugue and, member of Forbes. It'll say Forbes Tech Council in there somewhere, I believe.
Yeah. And does it give a little synopsis of Fugue, or is it just kind of a link?
I think it'll be Josh's name with a link to a short bio. And you could put some stuff in there about, like a one-line thing about Fugue or something. They're pretty short.
Yep. Okay. And obviously they're not like, straight pitches, but we want to kind of get people to be thinking about things in a way where, Fugue is the right way to go. We just need to like do it in a way where they have to come to their own conclusion.
Yeah, that's well said. These articles tend to be a little bit, higher level. You can think of them really as like thought leadership pieces. So, it could be I was just looking through the articles they've done just in April, and there have already been 3 on GDPR. So it'll be stuff like that. It'll be, 10 things that you should look out for with cybersecurity. Some of them actually have called out CISO in the title, like bringing the CISO to the executive table, stuff like that. So higher level stuff. And that's, so we came up with a bunch of ideas along those lines where we could work in, the places where Fugue is an expert. And you don't talk specifically about Fugue, but you lead them to that conclusion, so to speak.
Yeah. So, I guess this might be a good spot where, for like something around, embedding, engineers in your different departments, particularly in security and compliance, that we've talked about before.
Yep.
Rather than everybody needs to become an engineer or a programmer. maybe why CISOs should, basically embed engineers into their team or something like that. That certainly, I think, is one. I know that idea actually originally came from Josh, so I think we would get buy-in from him on that one.
Yep.
There's probably one on maybe why CISOs should care about DevSecOps or something like that. But,
yep.
I know that we've got somebody here, actually one of our sales guys kind of started to jot down ideas around the risk of human error in security. So that might be something, but yeah, I don't know. We can take a look at what you guys are thinking.
Okay. I actually like that human error one. That's not a phrase that I've seen, definitely not with Forbes Tech Council, but if you're a CISO or somebody, like that, that would resonate pretty strongly, I would imagine, right? Because they're all about fixing human error problems that come up.
Yeah. And I mean, the way you do that is with automation.
Exactly.
And the way you do automation is by embedding engineers into your process. So they're all kind of tied in. And so, I think some of these could be kind of, there could be sort of a loose series in a sense, potentially.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that, because the way I was, jotting the ideas down is I grouped them into certain categories. So one category was, automation. So it could be, the key to security and compliance success is automation. How automation changes the security and compliance game. You could even throw cloud in there as well, like automating the cloud. It's the game changer you've been waiting for, or something like that. But I think if you had automation, cloud, and security, some combination of them in the title, then, Josh would be the perfect person to write an article about that. Because automation's not, again, looking through the different subjects that Forbes Tech Council has been covering, I didn't see anything about automation. There's tons of stuff about security and some about compliance, but it's more like, a specific product line or service or platform or whatever, not really stepping back and going, hey, you can automate this, and it saves a lot of time, eliminates human error, that type of thing. So I think automation, we could get a couple articles out of that.
Yep.
Related to CISO, since that's a title that you want to, you're obviously targeting, this could be another thing where we tie things together. So it could be, 3 security trends CISOs should not ignore in 2018. And you could, again, go into, you could talk at a high level about some security problems that are out there, and then, lead it to, well, if you take out the human error and automate these processes, or if you bring in, engineers, into security and compliance, you can overcome these trends or something like that. But you're still calling out things that are in the news and that a CISO or somebody like that, cares about, right? In the title, it's like, oh, this is what my job is about. These guys have a different angle. I mean, that's where we want to lead people.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes sense. One of the conversations I was having last night was this notion of in the data center, the security team and the network team and those guys, they had all of the control. Mm-hmm. If you're an application, developer or an application team, and you need to, spin up, something new, new website, new application, whatever it is, you had to put your request in, there might be some questions, but it was ultimately the network and security teams, nothing happened without them doing something.
Right.
And, that was a slow, cumbersome process. And so I think, the cloud has in a sense liberated the app teams from that. Mm-hmm. But I think from the CISO perspective or the security professional's perspective, the cloud represents something of really just losing control. And And I'm wondering if there's, there might be an opportunity where we can basically talk about like, I don't know the way to put it or the headline off the top of my head right now, but essentially a message of like how CISOs can regain control over ops in the age of cloud without getting in the way. Something like that, because you don't want to go back to the bad old days where everything was, 3 to 6 month kind of approval cycles and all of that kind of stuff, because that's just, the business can't tolerate that.
Right. And that's a pretty common pain point. I mean, I think anybody who finds their way to this article is going to be like, yeah, I know about that taking 3 months to get this thing set up. That's easy.
Yeah. But, in the cloud, or if you're doing cloud right, and why, organizations go to the cloud for a handful of reasons. One is, maybe they just want to get out of the data center business. It's not their core competency. Let's outsource that to the cloud. Mm-hmm. Maybe we want to move to OpEx to get away from CapEx. But, the real promise of cloud is the ability to move fast and be agile and innovate, because if you're not innovating, you're going to get crushed by the competition. If you're moving slow in the data center, chances are your competitor is moving fast in the cloud. That's all great. But from the security professional's perspective, it's like, a big, oh shit moment, right? Because now it's like, we've got, hundreds of workloads now in the cloud. Everything is, CI/CD, which essentially means change is constantly happening. Where, our app teams are deploying new versions of the app and they're changing the infrastructure like on a daily or even hourly basis. And that might be great from a business perspective, but from a security perspective, it's a nightmare. How can we possibly certify that all this is running right? We don't know what's running. Is it compliant or not? Are we opening up security holes? It's just a big nightmare. But, I think we could probably put together something that's basically that, again, sends that message of like, regaining control of security and compliance in the cloud, without getting in the way, without hampering, without slowing things down, without throwing up roadblocks. It's possible now. And here are ways to think about going about doing that. I kind of feel like that might be a very well received message in CISO land, because they're in a really hard spot.
Right.
They're the ones whose, head goes on the chopping block, if that S3 bucket leak occurs. But like, what are they going to do? The DevOps teams own the tool chain, and, they haven't really had the greatest kind of tooling to be able to get out in front of this problem. So there aren't great solutions, but the risk is, monumental to them.
Right.
So, and speaking emotionally, nobody likes to lose control of the situation. So that's, and they've lost power, they've lost control, but the risk to them personally and their organization has been, never been greater. And so, like, I think that's one that we could really come up with something that, I think, any CISO seeing that if we get the headline right, that's great clickbait for CISOs and VPs of security and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what you call a pain point. Right there.
Yeah, it's a personal one and an organizational one.
Right. I mean, it doesn't get any more painful than that. So, no, that's cool. Yeah, I can put some different iterations of the title together to make sure, because the wording of the title is probably the most important part of that, because we just want people to go, oh man, that's me. Let me go read this thing, right? And then they see Josh's name, Fugue, and then they read it. So
right. Yeah, and then, another idea, probably not as compelling, but we can flesh out, is this notion too of, and I think we might have had something on that original kind of content worksheet, that it was around day 2. And that might be something that we could, on our end too, we can kind of explore, but more from a CISO perspective. So, there's a common refrain that we're hearing. We heard it from Global Giving, why did Global Giving choose Fugue?
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to go to the cloud, but like pretty much everything they do are in partnership with corporate partners.
Mm-hmm.
So these corporate partners that might be like Coca-Cola or whoever it is, they say, look, we know you want to go to the cloud, and we know you can get compliance correct up front in the cloud. Mm-hmm. But our experience in the cloud is this stuff drifts out of control, like the moment you put it out there. So until you can prove to us that not only are you getting it right up front, but that it stays that way always, we're not comfortable with you going to the cloud with our joint applications. And Fugue ensures that it always stays that way. And Fugue lets Global Giving, demonstrate to their corporate partners, hey, we're in the cloud, but here's what we're doing. And here's how we make sure that things don't drift out of compliance. And that's worked for them. So maybe there's two angles there, both potentially compelling in some level. One is, getting compliance in the cloud up front is easy. It's day two that where things become hard. Maintaining continuous compliance. That's where things fall apart. And here's kind of ways that you can go about, steps you can take to make sure that, what you put, the compliant workloads you've created stay that way, or something like that. Mm-hmm. The other thing too, that I had kind of this revelation last night, not only thinking back on the Global Giving, but talking to somebody that was here at the meetup, is for a lot of people, maybe not CISOs, but maybe CISOs. I think maybe for more the DevOps kind of professionals, being able to demonstrate at any moment that what they're doing and running in the cloud is compliant is just as important as it being compliant. So I guess it depends on who you are, but if you're like a DevOps engineer, of course you want things to be, secure and all that, but it's a royal pain every time the auditor comes down or whatever, and there's a lot of work to do there. That one may not be good for the tech council, but I do think the day two one is, CISOs need to be thinking about day two in the cloud, not up front. Getting it right up front is one thing. Keeping it that way, that's a whole different story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we could finesse that. So, in the article, we wouldn't be able to call out Global Giving, but maybe it could be written from a sense that, we had my company had a client that was dealing with some Fortune 500 partners, and they asked for this. So you could still explain how Fugue solved the problem without saying, exactly what you did and who it was for, but it's still showing like leadership, like there's a way around it.
Yeah. And the thing is, the good thing about Fugue is that we've tackled a lot of these issues from kind of first principles, which allows us to stake out certain, like, maybe kind of provocative opinions that if the CISO agrees with them, there's only one option to go with.
Yeah.
If I basically say, I did that, with your help, we all kind of collaborated on that, like why you should care about infrastructure governance.
Yep.
Blog post.
Yep.
It was a big hit internally here.
Oh, cool.
And the thing I like about it is, we stake out a couple of like principles that people should adhere to. Have zero tolerance for configuration drift. Make policy compliance a gating function for provisioning anything in the cloud. Like if you look at these, you're a CISO or a DevOps or whoever, if you say, yes, these things actually, I agree 100% with them, you're going to have a hard time doing it without Fugue. So it's kind of putting opinions out there, and you want those to connect with the audience, but it leads them to only one logical conclusion.
Exactly. What's this Fugue all about? Let me just,
exactly. So we could possibly take that blog post and sort of rejigger it around enough that one could also be a tech council we can kind of recycle it a little bit and make it something different.
Yeah, no, when you mentioned that post, I was just thinking of that. Like, yeah, there was some good stuff in there that we could definitely repurpose. And some of it was pretty high level stuff that would probably fit.
Yeah, it might, some of it might get a little low level. That's where I think we could kind of just, rewrite it. More of a CISO in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably would be a, fairly light lift. And that actually brings up a question too. Sorry to digress, but so we do an article for Forbes Tech Council, and it hits on Forbes's site.
Yep.
Outside of social media sharing and that kind of a thing, how can we best leverage this on our site or with potentially like sales? Like, what's your recommendation on like sales enablement collateral? Should we actually maybe do a blog post pointing people, introducing it maybe with like a little pull quote and then a link to the Forbes article? Should we do it in the press section? Like because I want to make sure like everything we do, we're leveraging in every way that we should be.
I mean, off the top of my head, I would say a short blog post with a pull quote, definitely. And, we could just kind of set it up as here's the high level topic, and you could send them off to Forbes. I'm sure Forbes would love to get some traffic. And what you're doing is you're promoting like the big, whatever the big thought is in that pull quote, which makes Josh look good. And that's another thing you can promote on social because, you'd want to promote this several times. I think you would want to have the article in your, I haven't been on your press section lately, but I think you would want to have a link to that in there. Just, it says Forbes and here's the topic and it goes there. I don't know, Gabby, do you think that's the way to go with that? I think you're on mute, Gabby.
I'm sorry, my computer froze. Can you say that again?
Yeah, I was saying we're talking about the Forbes articles, and after they publish on Forbes and we promote on social, I was thinking we could have like on Fugue's site, we could do like just a really short blog post with a pull quote that could redirect back to Forbes because it obviously makes Josh look good and like a author. And I think we could also probably put a link to the article in like the press section, right? Because I think. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think Forbes would love that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm interested, we get, one of these articles published on Forbes, obviously we will be, we'll tweet it out, we'll share it on LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. But like on our site, what's the best way or ways to leverage this? And always keeping in mind too that, I do think that these will help the sales team. So they may want to kind of use it in one-to-one, engagements. Like, hey, just we have that demo next week, but CEO just penned this article in Forbes. You might be interested in it. Should we do for each of these, just a blog post with like a summary and a pull quote and a link to the Forbes article, putting it on our press site, whatever.
Yeah, I think that would probably make the most sense. I'll ask our contact there if there is any requirements needed for republishing on our site. But I think usually they want, just like the summary and a link back to the article.
We wouldn't republish it. It would be like, Josh wrote this article over at Forbes. It talks about X, Y, and Z. Here's a little pull quote. Go check out the article.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
And if we can add if it makes sense, some kind of graphical element to it or something, or, make the quote have a border and big text, or just make it look kind of cool and different to try to get attention.
Yeah,
so I think that would help. Mm-hmm. And then they obviously promote it too. Their Twitter feed they have 3,000 followers. It's not huge, but it's, in theory, it's a really good audience for what we're aiming for. So they do some promotion as well. So between all those things, I'd be interested to see after the first couple what kind of, traction you got, what kind of traffic. if sales noticed anything, you know, after it runs, and just if any particular topic really seems to kind of resonate more than the others, that would be kind of cool.
We'll keep an eye on that. The nice thing, like, I really like our field sales team here. It's 6 or 7 people. They're pretty good about reaching out to me or like letting me know, like, hey, just you know, we had a prospect bring up this article we did or this blog post or whatever. So I'm hoping as we go that the feedback loop with the sales team is going to be pretty tight and effective.
Yeah. Cool. So Gabby, I believe we have to go. We have a pretty tight deadline here.
Yeah, we have to hop off for another call, but I'm going to get this session transcribed so that we can get started on moving this along.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we can kind of flesh out a little bit of a calendar and the ones that we want to do, but you know, maybe by like early next week we can pick like the first one and just start.
Perfect.
Yeah. What I can do, Drew, is once we have the recording, I can put together like a list of topics from this call and also some other ones that I came up with that we didn't get to talk about. And that way you can have a whole laundry list of things to look at. And then, we can choose what we want to do and start fleshing them out.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Thanks for your time, Drew.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.